What's going on, guys? My name's Theoatrix, and yesterday Jagex released a broad range of stats about the Trailblazer League. In the first hour of release, almost 340,000 regular trees were chopped down. To date, 7.6 million tree spirits have been defeated by players that are collecting nature runes and the rune axe. In total, over 40 million league tasks have been completed so far. So Jagex gave us a lot more data, with information about which areas players chose, people's relic choices, as well as some statistics about bossing. In this video, I'm going to visualize the data and show you all of the trends, starting with the areas that were chosen. The three most popular regions chosen by players were Kandarin, Asgarnia, and Mauritania. For the first area, Kandarin is by far the most popular choice, with 3 out of 4 players choosing it, totaling 132,000 accounts. Asgarnia is second at 14%, then the Wilderness and Mauritania are both 3%, Tiranwen and the Desert are 2%, and then 1% for the Fremennik region, which has under 2,000 players choosing it. For the second area choice, Asgarnia is the most popular with over 46,000 players choosing it. Then Mauritania is a close second with 34%, then Kandarin at 12%. Then there's Tiranwen, the Fremennik region, and the Desert and Wilderness. In total, 122,000 players chose a second region, so 53,000 people only unlocked one region, then presumably stopped playing. For the third and final region choice, Asgarnia again is the most popular at 39%, and once again Mauritania is a close second with 36%. The Fremennik region is also pretty popular for the third choice as well. Then there's Tiranwen, Kandarin, the Desert, and then the Wilderness. Only 51,000 players have chosen a third region, so 71,000 players would have stopped at the second region and haven't unlocked a third. In terms of total player numbers, 148,000 people chose Kandarin, 89,000 chose Asgarnia, 67,000 chose Mauritania, 15,000 for Tiranwen, 12,000 for the Fremennik region, 8,000 for the Wilderness, and only 6,000 for the Desert. So the Desert and the Wilderness are the least popular, with around 20 times more players choosing Kandarin. The most popular area pathway that's been chosen is unlocking Kandarin, then Mauritania, then Asgarnia, and over 13,000 players have chosen this exact pathway. Now let's talk about the relic choices. Before I break down each tier, the most popular relic pathway is Skilling Prodigy, Last Recall, Fluid Strikes, Unnatural Selection, Botanist, then Weapons Specialist, with almost 5,000 players choosing that exact pathway. In Tier 1, Endless Harvest is the most popular relic, with 40% of players choosing it. Then Skilling Prodigy is a close second at 37%, then Production Master is at 23%. For Tier 2, Last Recall is by far the most common choice, with 77% of players choosing it, and that makes a lot of sense since it's a fair bit more powerful than the other two relics. Then Eternal Jeweler has 19% of players choosing it, and then Fairy's Flight only 4%. In Tier 3, Fluid Strikes, the melee relic, is by far the most popular, with 72% of players choosing it. Quickshot, the ranged one, is second at 18%, and Double Cast is the remaining 10%. For Tier 4, Unnatural Selection is the most popular by a mile, with 94% of players choosing it. Then Treasure Seeker is the remaining 6%, which is almost 1 in 20 players. In Tier 5, Botanist is the most common by far again, with 64%, then Equilibrium is at 19%, then Infernal Gathering at 17%. For the final tier, Tier 6, 54% of players have chosen Draining Strikes, then Weapon Specialist is a pretty close second with 42% choosing it. Exploding Attacks is far less common with only 4% choosing it, making it on par with Fairy's Flight from Tier 2. There's some interesting info about Tier 4 that Jagex released as well. So Tier 4 only has 2 relics that you can choose from: Unnatural Selection and Treasure Seeker, whereas all of the other tiers have 3. This wasn't intentional by Jagex. There was actually a 3rd relic for Tier 4, but they found some huge bugs with it very close to the release date of the league. The missing Tier 4 relic was called Second Inventory, and this relic essentially expanded your inventory by having a looting bag that you could use anywhere in the game. In old school, there's lots of times where the game engine needs to check whether you have a certain item in your inventory, like if you're doing a quest or you're using a farming tool to clear a patch. In the majority of these instances, the game uses a generic piece of code to check if you have that item, but Jagex says there's also over 1,000 instances where this code isn't generic and it's independent. So for this relic, it was coded to work for all the times that the generic code was used. But for those 1,000 independent instances, the game wouldn't pick up that you had the item in your second inventory. Since this bug was found so close to the release date of the league, Jagex didn't have the time and resources to go through every single aspect to find these independent scripts and make them work with the relic. So second inventory was scrapped. So now let's talk about some bossing statistics. The most popular boss that's been killed within the league is General Grador, the Bandos boss, being slain over 5.2 million times. Regarding the God Wars bosses, Krill Tsutsaroth is second with just over 2.4 million kills. Then Commander Ziliana, the Saradomin boss, just under 2.4. Then Kree Ara, the Armadillo boss, has been killed far less, just under 800,000 times. Surprisingly, the Barrows chest has been looted 2.2 million times, which is far less than General Grador, and I would have expected that to be a lot more. The Theater of Blood, which are the only raids available within the league, has been completed almost 42,000 times, and the Nightmare boss has been slain over 106,000 times. The Jagex moderators also answered some frequently asked questions about the league. Firstly, would you design any of the relics differently? They say that Fairy's Flight and Eternal Jeweler are far less powerful compared to Last Recall, since they don't really offer anything you can't do otherwise without relics, so they would likely try to balance out those tier 2 relics more. Jagex says that the Botanist relic was one that should have only had skilling benefits. Since Botanist keeps your stats boosted and makes them not drain, it's a very powerful combat relic as well, which was a bit of an oversight. Another common question was, would you design the areas any differently? Mod Husky says that Kandarin in particular could have been split into 2 areas, since it gives access to almost a third of the RuneScape map. He says that leaving the Gnome region out of Kandarin and adding it to another region would have fixed this. Mod Husky also says that the desert suffered a lot, with lacking a lot of master tasks, since Jagex had troubles finding difficult tasks within the desert. There's not very many bosses within the desert, nor is there many high-level skilling activities. The final question I'll go through is, when will we be able to access the League's reward shop to spend our League points? The League's shop will open as soon as the League ends on the 6th of January, and Mod Ditto gave us a teaser of the League's reward shop, showing the point costs for each reward. The Tier 3 Trailblazer outfit is the most expensive reward, costing 15,000 League points for the set. Also, with the Trailblazer Graceful die, it gives you 6 recolor kits, so you don't need to buy that reward 6 separate times in order to recolor your full Graceful set. Anyways, they're the interesting stats that Jagex presented us with. Which part surprised you the most? I personally would have thought that the wilderness or desert region would have had more players choosing them, and also it definitely would have been interesting to see how many players would choose second inventory over the other tier 4 relics. It definitely would have been pretty powerful compared to the other ones. Anyways, thanks for watching and have a nice day.